call it what it is. And so, you know, we have to, you know, get out of this cognitive dissonance and look at the facts on the table. When we know George Washington, you know, all like as you stated, these were the people that wrote the letter to the Sultan and called them Americans. So for us to tie ourselves just with that point alone, on top of the, you know, 1828 Webster's dictionary, all that type of stuff, just that point alone should let the Moor know, hey, inside of your head, are you arguing with yourself right now? Well, this is the cognitive dissonance, the mentality that you have to use to align. Don't, you know, and this is just for the people just watching, not, you know, you or anybody else on this line really. But you know, this is a psychological thing. This is don't just look at the black and white, even though we have to look at the black and white. Look at yourself to see how you can see where the cognitive dissonance is, because it's guaranteed that cognitive dissonance was in every single Moor before they came across this international law standpoint. We were all led astray in some degree. It's just now we have to not only say wherever you're at along this path. Remember how the prophet said the prophet will know, you know, where every Moor is along the path based on, you know, the common sense of it. Do you have an organization or a government?
Right.
Okay, which one is more enforceful? Right. So we just got to ask the basic common sense, basic questions. Right.
Yeah, we do. We just simply got to do that. And when you say cognitive dissonance, that's psychosis. You know, we got to also keep in mind that, you know, we have been under heavy attack. Psychological warfare has been attacked. We've been dealing with psychological warfare. If you ever read Behold the Pale Horse, that principle is in that book. It's called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. You know, it's always been an attack against the Moors because they knew that we had the authority and the sovereignty over the land and over them. And they don't want to pay taxes. They didn't want to pay taxes to Great Britain. You know what I mean? They breached that contract. So and then they came here, you know, got with the Sultan. We established a treaty of peace and friendship, and you know, a couple of years, not too much longer after that. What the Naturalization Act was in 1790, was it? Yeah, right. Is before even the second treaty of peace and friendship of 1836. So, but let's also keep in mind too, though, it didn't happen without the help of our own. You know, our own people assisted the colonizers in subjugating us. There's a famous song, "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud." You know, put us in the mind state of Negrodom, right? Black, Negro, blacks, colors, African Americans, Indians, Aboriginal Americans, and Moorish Americans. And okay, now that I mentioned that, I know what the 101 said. Why are you Moorish Americans? Because we're descendants of Moroccans born in America. Now, what that sound like? Does that sound like something the prophet wrote? If I'm a descendant of the Moroccans, then I'm a Moroccan. And it doesn't matter where I'm born. To that, the prophet said that this is Northwest Mexico. He never said that this was America. So why are you saying it then? So we're not Moorish Americans. I don't care what the 101 says. It's a trick bag if you were to ask me. I think that FBI might have rewrote that.
Oh, definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
It's two different versions. Matter of fact, you can you can buy them, right? I've been, you know, it's a lot of Moors that caught that out. Not to cut you off.
No, you good.
But you can buy the 101s, and half the people that got it have one version. That half the people that got it, they'll be reading straight from the back part, and you can see some of the words just down the line. You be reading like, what? Like, hold on. Nah, you sure you reading from the same? You know what I mean? So,
right.
Yeah.
Just like the part and partial versus part and parcel literature. You know, you'll find one that says part and partial. The other one says part and parcel. But the prophet couldn't have said both. He could only have said one or the other. that shows the corruption in his literature. And again, the temples hasn't been cleaned up. No one can give me more that has cleaned up the temple. The temple hasn't been cleaned up. So why are we operating as if it's all good? I don't care if it's a 501c3, and I don't care if it's in the 805. Both structures falls under the jurisdiction of the United States. And we're dealing with autonomy. The whole goal is to gain sovereignty and independence away from the colonizers so that then we can use consular court to shut them down through decolonization, man. Period. And there's no other way to go with this. There's only one way, and in one way only, is through consular court. The power is in consular court. People don't realize the real power of consular court, and not just a standalone consular court with some self-appointed consul general. I'm sick of all these self-appointed Moors out here charging $5,000 and $10,000 for processes. Nationality is free. Your salvation should be free. Your remedies are supposed to be free. And how do they become so? It's through your judicial branch, which is the branch that establishes your consular court under the protections of your state government, and your state government, your Moorish state government, falls under the existing and pre-existing authority and sovereignty of the Empire of Morocco. I yield the floor.
Yep. That's well said. That's well said. So I think now would be a time to open up the floor for any questions that anybody may have, because we can definitely do this all day.
I can do this all day.
So, Islam, I got a question.
Islam.
It's really not a question. I mean, you answered the question when you said something about the 501c3 and the 805 or the 804,
right,
whatever it was. And I'm just piggybacking off of that. In this day and age, we know that Federal Reserve notes is being used by everybody on these land mass over here, right? All these governments, these different governments around the world appear to be corporations. They appear to be corporations, all of them. And so with the commerce, okay, with AMPAG, right? I'm pretty sure we got a plan or something to deal with this commerce thing, but how do AMPAG AMPAG plan on dealing with commerce not being a corporation, and I'm pretty sure it's probably gonna be some way through the consular court. I mean, not through the consular court, but through the De La Zills making a law or something like that. But can you expound on that a little bit?
Well, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship is a document that, for commercial purposes, for commerce, amity and commerce, and the state doesn't have to be established as a corporation in order to partake in commerce. The United States is set up as a corporation because they don't have no sovereign authority on no land, nowhere. So they had to establish it as they did, as an international organization, to be able to partake in commerce. However, that was a coup. That was a coup d'état that took place with the Act of Congress of 1871 against the de jure Republic, which is the United States of America. It became the United States as a corporation. But as far as our Moorish states in regards to operating in commerce, this is when you reach the level or the phase of economic liberty without any inequality. And the Qadis, which is your deed tax assessors, they're activated. They're the ones who does the auditing to those who owe taxes. He's the one who, when there's a closing at a real estate attorney's office, he has to be there to examine the title transfers, because there's certain principles that needs to be in place when titles are being transferred. Not only that, they owe us 2% sales tax for every real estate closing. So our activity in commerce is based in the third principle, which is economic liberty without any inequality, in which we are now starting to generate revenues. And the colonizers are our, for a lack of a better term, they could be considered our worker bees, right? We gotta look at things as, remember the movie Trading Places? Eddie Murphy was the poor man on the streets, and the two white guys were the rich dudes in Wall Street. Well, in all actuality, Eddie Murphy was supposed to be the rich guy in Wall Street, and the two white guys were supposed to be the poor man on the streets. So if you look at it from that perspective, meaning that we are the elite, we are the well-to-do, we are the blue bloods. We aren't the one that's supposed to be working on no job.
Islam, bro.
Right. We're not the ones that's supposed to be paying taxes. The table has to be turned around. That's the real aspect, or the real perspective of our commerce. Whereas they are the ones doing all the partaking in all the commercial work and paying their taxes, while we fall back and collect those taxes, while at the same time managing and controlling the corporation. What corporation? The United States. That corporation belongs to Moroccans because they're on our land. So they're supposed to be operating on our behalf. They already have the system in place to write the quarterly or annual checks based on the taxes that are coming in from the people that they're charging, which is their citizens and their subjects. So when you become a national, you're no longer their subject. So therefore, you no longer fall under the taxation jurisdiction. They're the ones that's under the taxation jurisdiction. We have to set it up so that they can pay us the taxes, and we manage the process. Does that answer your question, good brother?
And you telling straight facts. This coming from Amir L.
Amir, Islam Sharif. Islam.
And just to expound on what you stated, which is all exact and correct.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, brother. I was trying to ask for clarity on one little point. I apologize. My mic was off. I was talking. Nobody could hear me. I apologize. This still Brother Shin Bey. That's good, because you're saying basically that the United States is kind of like the straw for AMPAG, so to speak, and AMPAG and the other one, and anyone in any other state more that come in.
Yeah.
So now what I'm saying is there got to be a contract somewhere between AMPAG and the United States in order to receive I guess the funding or whatever. I guess that'll come through consular court or something like that. But that's good though. We ain't supposed to pay them people. They supposed to be paying us. They own the land.
Yes, it does come through consular court, through legislation. We have to write legislation. We have to enact laws. Legislations are the orders that are being given to the colonizers, and not all of them are like that, because there's different forms of legislation, right? You can have internal legislations to govern your own Moors, your own people, your own nationals. You also have external legislation to deal with foreign entities, whether it be the United States, China, whoever. And it comes from the Dalil Aziz, which is the matriarchal council, the legislators, the executive branch, the Wazir al-Rais, or the prime minister, signs it into law, and then the judicial branch, the Qazi, in this case Isaac Bey, he would write consular court judicial orders in harmony with said legislation, and hand it over or present it to the colonizers for them to abide by. And then you got to give them the orders. You got to tell them about when to do it, how to do it, right? There are tenants. You got to tell them when and how to do certain things, and that does happen through consular court and the judicial orders that come from consular court as it relates to the legislation that's been passed by the mothers of the Dalil Aziz. If you're saying anything, Brother Shin, you're on mute.
Thank you, Wazir. I appreciate that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful stuff.
Islam,
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. No problem. Go ahead, Brother Akil. What were you saying?
Yeah, you basically said everything that that I was gonna touch base. In the Montevideo Convention Rights and Duties of the State, in that document, that international law document, Article 1, it says the state is a person, and we know that a person is a corporation. And so, being that we will be part and parcel of our own Moroccan state governments, when it comes to business in our everyday affairs, we come as we are, and there's no veil to how we're operating or doing business. There's no I got to make a corporation to operate and et cetera, et cetera. When like Abdul said, that was all a part of their trick bag to keep them above float, and then intermingle us as the so-called Americans and do the same thing,
Right.
So that's and which is pretty much the way that Noble Drew Ali brought, and they stole from him, until international law was, it was time for us to move on that standpoint, as a state government, etc.
Right.
So that's just that on the commerce part that we come as we are,
Right. Islam.
So
Islam, can you explain? Can you give a little bit more depth on that statement? Coming as you are, because as I am, I'm a flesh and blood Moroccan man.
right.
And when you say come as we are, what does that mean? Because in other words, let me give you some scope on what I'm looking for. I've been taught that like you said earlier, we gotta have some kind of straw to deal with commercial. In other words, put it this way, fictitious deal with fictitious and real deal with real, so to speak. Flesh and blood deal flesh and blood. In other words, you can't go into the cartoon world. A flesh and blood can't go into the world of cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
Are we okay? So we know that the United States is a cartoon, so to speak, fictitious, paperwork, etc. Only exists on paperwork. We the de jure government. When you say "come as you are we saying that we as flesh and blood people are to come to the fictitious United States of America, and they are to recognize us as who we are and do as we say type thing?
Correct. According to the Moroccan laws, they're to do according to what's in the Moroccan laws, what's already been established before the United States corporation even became a corporation. So us going as, like you said, living flesh and blood people, dealing with any type of affair in or with the United States, whether it be you getting pulled over, you going to work, or any type of affair, they have to base whatever avenue they're talking about and narrow it down to a Moroccan treaty, because that's how you're presenting yourself. That's the basis of your relationship with them. So we got to start at the 0 point, the how we even got here, right? So
I like that.
to get the right relationship or right setup with the United States, you coming as you are, is doing what everybody else did, sticking with the God's covenant, if you will, aka the Constitution that constitutes the treaty, or they can enforce whatever treaty they're a part of. And all this is and this goes into what I kind of want to get into, the metaphysics of law, but I'm not going to really get into that now. But just to the basics, as far as your perception, your comment that you just put in, it's us coming as we are based on our Moroccan treaties, or one treaty such as the Treaty of Peace and Friendship that created the relationship with us in the United States of America. Everything that's in that treaty is us coming as we are. This is how we came, this is how we gonna stay, and this is what it is. And when we doing business, so anything outside of these 25 articles is not it. That's not us coming how that we didn't come that way. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Did that answer the question?
Islam. Thank you very much. Islam.
Okay. This is Amir L. If y'all brothers will look at y'all birth certificates, I'm gonna tell you what's really going on and how they captivated us. When you was born, that registrar was supposed to be there to record it. Look at your birth certificate and it's gonna be another date on there. That's when the registrar recorded that date of birth. That's when they created the legal entity, which is a corporation. So basically, what you've been doing is you've been intertwined with that business in your name, sounds like you, look like you, and everything else about you. You are the private man or private woman or a living soul. This what they've been doing. All them brothers that's been up in jail right now, this is what they've been convicting them of them. They've been convicting the legal entity.
Let me clarify that. You're absolutely. Go ahead.
This what they've been doing. They've been convicting the legal entity, but we need a warm body. And as a living man or a living woman, you going in there. You going in to their hot box, which is the actual prison system. Think about it. Think about it. It's an assumed name, and you got to do it. But with AMPAG, you ain't got to do it. But you can do it anyway, just as an actual safeguard. These Europeans or white folks, whatever you want to call them, they dirty. They didn't tell you this. You ain't gonna learn this in school. You're not gonna learn it in school. 20, 30 years later, now we finding out about what they've been doing.
Well, that's where the National Trust for AMPAG, NUMECA, and AMPAC, or any other state government that comes online, they have to establish a national trust, because the national trust, through the national trust, you bring all your property into that protection. That includes the straw man. That's a misnomer. The correct term for that
Is legal entity.
No, the correct term for that, all caps, is the Moorish or the Moroccan subject or protege. That's really what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Moroccan subject, and that's what they adjudicate on you. It's that corporation. But by the way, the Naturalization Act was of 1870. That was the date. And it was done through the Naturalization Act of 1870. And then later on, you had the 14th Amendment that came into the picture, making us dead corpse, right? The all caps name. So that is called a transmitting utility. So all the benefits of your empire or your estate gets transferred over to them. That benefit gets transferred over to them through escheat and hypothecation. And so that's why the purpose is to take that entity and bring it. Currently, your straw man is dead at sea, floating around in the United States. So the human side of you. So okay, let's say Amir, let's say Tyrone Smith became Amir Ale.
Okay.
Well, Amir Ale is the living, breathing entity, and Tyrone Smith is the dead corpse. So when you choose between the submission of the laws of the empire and you consent to a Moroccan state government, you did that for your living being. Well, that's half the battle.
Wazir, this is what I was just want to point out, is that there's another date on that birth certificate.
The date doesn't matter. Let me finish my point.
Yeah. Wazir, it does matter, because
you gotta let me finish the point, though. You gotta let me finish the point. What I'm trying to say is that you gotta bring whatever date says it's on there. It could be 2,000 years ago, 2,000 years later. It doesn't matter. The point is that you have to transfer it over. You, as the natural being, have been redeemed into a Moroccan government. But if you don't do the same for your Moroccan subject, then the Moroccan subject will continue to be harassed by the United States, regardless on whatever date. So what you have to do is take your Moroccan subject name and bring it into the national trust, so that it's now under the protection of the Moroccan Empire through AMPAG or New Mecca or AMPAG. So I know what you're saying about the date, but go ahead, brother.
No, I was saying that, but what I was just trying to point out to everybody that's on the line is that date that was recorded by the registrar, that's when they created the legal entity. This is all I was trying to point out.
Yeah, and then now you've replaced that date with the date in which you took that legal entity and brought it into the protection of your.
Right.
So it doesn't give them any extra power. It's just,
No. But what I was trying to say is that this is where they was getting the people at, our people at, because that was the date that they created the legal entity. It was like, for example, if you go to a car dealership, you thinking that you buying a vehicle for yourself. No, you buying it for the legal entity.
Mm-hmm.
This is all I'm trying to say.
No, I know what you're trying to say. You're speaking on the problem. I'm trying to speak on the solution.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, bro, I already know you got the solution, but this is what I'm trying to present to the people.
Yes, Islam, good brother.
All right.
Islam. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely correct about all what you're saying in terms of the problem, but there's a solution. I'm trying to give the people, that's the viewers that's listening, that there is a solution, and that's done through your national trust. See, they have their stuff set up through their own type of trust. So then you got to set up your own national trust. Whenever you register your vehicle, you're registering it into their trust. So now what we have to do is transfer that that title or that registration into the national trust, and through that process, it becomes an allodial title, which means it's no longer encumbered. If that makes any sense to everyone out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it makes sense to me.
Yeah. Any other questions? What you got, Akil? You got another question?
Islam. I got something else. I'm on another subject. On something else. If we would. Okay. For example, the charter, right? This government would have a charter, would it not? Impact. In other words, impact, and all the ones. We do have charters, right?
No.
We
The
don't have.
United States have a charter. Well, we
Huh?
are. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to listen. My baby is disturbing. Come in, son.
We don't have a charter. That's not organic. That's their stuff. If you're talking about a form of alliance between us, AMPAG, and New Mecca, that would be a treaty.
Okay. What? Okay. I'm sorry. What I'm really getting at is, okay. Let's say impact, right? The name impact have to be I would say owned. In other words, it have to be owned somehow. Is it copyrighted, or is it? I mean, what? We got a name, Impact, Impag, New Mecca. These names have to be, so to speak, reported or served notice to, as to the new ownership of the people, or something, that where it's got to be serve a notice or something. What is that process?
I'm not 100 with what you're saying. We don't anything dealing with copyrights and trademarks and all that. That's United States stuff. I think what you're saying is something that I mentioned earlier. The Constitution has been ratified, promulgated, and deposited with the United Nations. Right? So we have put our state government, our name, our attributes, whatever, on the record with the United Nations, as well as the United States and the state of Georgia, so-called state of Georgia. So that's on the record.
Okay. So
I don't mean to interject, but Brother Shannon Bay, AMPAG don't need to be copyrighted, because guess what? The white folks here on our land doing business, and what we need to copyright, what? I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. We don't copyright. We don't need to copyright the name. In order to, we just put it on the record. So that's not a process. We put it on the record through what's called ratifying, promulgating, and depositing. That's
right.
It.
We don't need to patent nothing, because they on our land doing business. All we want is a cut.
In all actuality, what's supposed to be happening is they're supposed to register their corporations and their assets and any of their subsidiaries and franchisees with us. So the state of Georgia is currently in default because they have not registered their corporation, the state of Georgia, with AMPAG. The same way, when you establish a business, an LLC, you under their jurisdiction in the old paradigm, you register it with the Secretary of State. Well, this new paradigm, the entire state of Georgia needs to register themselves with AMPAG. But we're still ironing out the kinks. We are a young nation going through our various stages of advancement. And we'll get there when we get there, and we'll get there very soon. Go ahead, Brother Akil.
Yeah, real quick. I think this last few minutes in the conversation, when you brought that point, is kind of leading back into the conversation we had before this meeting started. As far as, or this interview, as far as how people may see it, or the general public may see it. As far as our proof of acknowledgement, or maybe even advertisement, because we got to remember that when, you know, TV, their websites, all of that stuff, when it comes to people looking up if AMPAC or AMPAG or New Mecca or any other Moorish state, if is actual, is legitimate, is acknowledged, a lot of people will, you know, go to the United Nations website. Hey, who are the non-member states? And they may not see, you know, our Moorish state governments, because we're now depending on their system to advertise for our system. When in actuality, the process for them getting back to Europe or walking back to Europe will be a silent and slow, not a slow, just a silent process. As far as simple as this, a government is predominantly raised or bases its growth off of taxes a lot. That's pretty much the main way for a government to come up. So if they are not able to pay taxes, just it'll be the same problems they faced right when they started their own governments, because now they can't no longer upkeep their government, the buildings they're in. And so now we don't have a, you know, we don't have AMPAC or any other Moorish state government being advertised, because people won't know that way. It won't be through the help of the United States or the assistance of any type of way. If anything, it'll be a fight back. But the lawful way and the reality of it is that once the state government, the Moorish state government, start enforcing one or two or even a few laws, the United States will not be able to upkeep, you know, simply because taxes alone, they're already in debt, you know, with a lot of state governments outside of Moorish state governments. So when we're talking about people being on notice, it's going to be more so a abrupt notice and not a formal type of notice, as it was formal on our behalf. But as far as everybody else, is going to be a rude awakening more so, you know, when you going into work and you got to figure out, you got to answer to some other government, you know, all of a sudden, to where it's not, you know, you didn't get any paperwork in this before, nothing in the mail, you didn't see nothing on TV, you know, nothing like that, you know, unless it's, you know, the Moorish state government doing that. But you know, the awareness, the acknowledgement, you know, because it's gonna be the people that, well, you know, if they're an actual legitimate state government, why I don't see them on the United Nations? Well, now we depending on their system, when the actual proof of the pudding is in your own experience as to, you know, well, didn't this you know, company or policy enforcer, aren't they respecting you now? Aren't they acknowledging your government? They're the actual substance of the United States is acknowledging your government, right? So that is this the more so the outside of the veil or outside of the surface level or the face value of things that we got to pretty much bypass, so we can, you know, meet the power of Allah, if you will, through yourself one-on-one, you know.
It's called dealing with full powers. And you gain full powers when you when you check off certain boxes. The first box of the triple principle is the sovereignty and independence box. And in that box, there's several other boxes, as I explained earlier. You got your flag, your seal, your constitution, your oath of allegiance. And the most important one there is your constitution, as well as your flag and your seal. And then you compile that with a declaration of statehood cover letter, or a independence declaration of independence letter, if you will, and you send that off to the United Nations. You put it on a record with them, and then you just continue acting as if, because we're not looking for recognition. You mentioned the Montevideo Convention of 1933, the rights and duties of states. I don't remember which article it is, but it states right in there that no state requires the recognition of another state to be a state. You know who recognized us? AMPAG, New Mecca. You know who recognized New Mecca? AMPAG and AMPAC. In other words, we recognize each other. There's a new state out of Jamaica. The head of state his name is Chief Richard Curry. The name of the state is a compound. ACCOMPOG, a compound. They're Maroons. And we're looking to recognize them, and for them to recognize us. We recognize ourselves. We don't need these people's recognition, man. You just need to check the boxes according to international law and the instructions that's been laid out in international law and the treaties, and just continue on acting as if. And how do you continue on? How do you proceed on acting as if? Legislation. Write up legislation. That's the key to the game, is legislation, the power of the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword. You know how much legislation they have to control us? They legislate the hell out of us. And we'd never have any counter legislation to shut down their legislation against us. Currently, our sister Ashira, which is the legislator, she has a proposed bill on the table to that keeps the nationals from taking the vaccine, that COVID vaccine crap. Okay, well, until her legislation came out, Moors did not have a counter legislation for not taking the vaccine. You see, so they telling us what we're supposed to do, and we don't have something to counter them and say, no, the hell we don't. And by the way, this is what you got to do. Right. And it happens through consular court. So that's what we're missing. That's what we've been missing. That's the key. It's legislation, consular court. But you cannot have legislation and consular court as individuals. You need the three branches of government. You need your legislators, you need the head of state, and you need your chief judge of consular court. That holy trifecta is our salvation.
You
gotta have laws, man. We gotta enact. I mean, aren't we L's and Bays? Aren't Bays and L's the lawgivers and all this? Well, then let's exercise it, please. Because our laws is not based on, like, you know how the prophet said that the grand sheiks are to enact laws. Yeah, well, that's within the temple. But the temple is under the jurisdiction of the United States. You know what the temple needs to be? The name needs to be changed to Moorish Temple of Morocco.
You're right. Right.
And it certainly will under the jurisdiction of AMPAG, because when we might establish the first Moorish Temple of the Moorish Temple within our state, because all the other Moorish Temple of Americas are inside of the United States.
Right.
And ain't nobody looking into getting it out of that jurisdiction and bringing it back home to Morocco. We're just stuck in it. Moorish Temple of America, the prophet did it this way. The prophet, they're in worship. They're in a state of worship. And that's disobeying the prophet, because the prophet said it himself. Don't worship me, study, carry on my laws. But these people are in worship, most of them, not all of them. They're not in, they're in worship and they're in fellowship. Our Moors are not into scholarship, because if they were into scholarship, they'll continue studying and studying and studying and studying and studying and studying and studying their way up past the lower degrees of law into the higher degrees of international law. And that's what's been killing us for the past, that's one of the things that's been killing us for the past 100 years, but it's due to the fact of the infiltration though. You know, they put us in a state, in the mindset of church. You know, there's many temples that operate as a church, singing Moorish hymns. I've seen it on Facebook and on social media, singing Muslims, Muslims, and all these. It's like, that's not, no, it's a civic organization. It's supposed to be getting you ready for the second half that wasn't been told, which is nationhood. Hence, divine and national movement. When are we going to tap into the national side of the movement? Why are we only stuck with the divine side of the movement, bro? When we going to tap into the national side and start establishing state governments that are autonomous, sovereign, and independent away from the United States, utilizing the treaties that was written by our ancestors for our salvation? I'm going to read Article 15 of the Treaty of Madrid. If it comes up, come on, come up. I don't know what's up with this. I don't know what's been going on with my computer. It doesn't usually act like this. Okay, there it is. Let me read Article 15, paragraph 1 for you all real quick. Come on. Okay. Let me make it bigger. Okay. Article 15, any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country. What's the foreign country? United States. and who shall return to Morocco shall, after having remained for a length of time equal to that which shall have been regularly necessary for him to obtain such naturalization, choose between the entire submission to the laws of the empire and the obligation to quit Morocco, unless it shall be proved that his naturalization in a foreign country was obtained with the consent of the government of Morocco. So we're supposed to choose between the submission of the laws of the empire. And if you don't do that, this is what Article 2 says. Paragraph 2. It says, foreign naturalization heretofore acquired by subjects of Morocco, according to the rules established by the laws of each country, what are each countries? That could be the United States, that could be Portugal, that could be Spain, shall be continued to them as regards all its effects without any restrictions, meaning that these countries, in our case is the United States, they can do whatever they want with you without any restrictions, as long as you remain in the jurisdiction of the United States. Now, do they not do whatever they want with us without any restrictions? Do they not? Of course they do, because we hadn't chosen the mission between the laws of the empire. We haven't came back home to Morocco, and since we acquiesce from that regard, they're doing what they want with us. They're simply enforcing the treaties on us that we're not enforcing upon them as we're supposed to do. Go ahead, good brother.
Islam, Wazir. So that, with that being said, when you say naturalization, is there any literature pertaining to naturalization of that shows that a person can be naturalized other than the act of naturalization spoken of by the process? In other words, being the swearing in and all of this stuff. No, because we know naturalization, when them people came over on Ellis Island, they had to basically give up their nationality or their citizenship rather to wherever they was from, and be naturalized into the U.S. But we as slave ancestors was slaves, so they said that we was not even citizens or whatever. So we didn't never go down there to the naturalization building and swear in and none of that. We never did none of that. So is there paperwork or some documentation showing that a person or ex-slave or a freedman can be naturalized without their consent?
No, that's the point. That was done against the law. They naturalized us against our consent and against our free will. That's why the last part of article paragraph 1, it says that unless it shall be proved that his naturalization in a foreign country was obtained with the consent of the government of Morocco. Mm-hmm. It wasn't obtained with the consent of the government of Morocco. They snuck that in. They snuck that in on us. Because up to that point, we were Moorish subjects in Morocco under the jurisdiction of the United States. They're the ones who, through the Naturalization Act of 1870, snuck us into the naturalization process without our consent, without us even knowing it.
Islam. So Moorish subjects, that means we're subject to the laws, or to the, in other words, subject. We'd have to be conscious of that, I think, or would we not be conscious that we were subjects?
No, you won't be conscious of the fact that you were subjects. That's why they did. They turned us into citizens.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to do. They want us to recognize the fact that we were Moorish subjects, and so instead they called us citizens, and then after that, they're calling us Negroes, Blacks, Coloreds, African Americans.
And just to kind of make more clarification on that point, we can, in a sense, we can kind of expound on or compare this to the 9/10 possession, and being that as Abdul was saying, when we look at history, we can see things like French subject, you know, when they're talking about Continental Congress, French subject, British subject, you know, things of that nature, in which just means that this person, since you're part and parcel, right? The sovereign is the state government, but since you're part and parcel to the state government, right, you will be the person that's subject to the Moroccan laws or whatever laws you're a part of. But then they took that and put another veil over it and said, okay, well, these Moroccan subjects, it's no longer the Moors saying Moroccan subjects, the United States saying Moroccan subjects, because the veil they put up and how they changed Moroccan subject to seem a straw from a living person to a straw man is by comparing or making the two seem very, very comparable, right? So now the Moroccan subject in their system means something totally different to what it first meant or what it originally meant or truly meant. So now we getting into, you know, things like democracy, you know, because a lot of people think a democratic government is bad, in which it's not bad. It's just how the United States turned and used that word. In international law, it's all good. So when we, you know, it's just a different way of going about things. So it's the same thing for the Moroccan subject or the Moorish subject, in which that they have turned it into something that's not good. So we were subject to our own laws. We were subject to, you know, this kind of get into the Muslim thing. You know, you subject to Allah or all that type of stuff, to where you're the subject and the creator. And they say you create the government. You're a part of the government enforces the will of Allah, and you're subject to your own self. So when we're talking about higher self, lower self is one. So the 9/10 possession thing is kind of, in a sense, what we're talking about as far as you know, the Moroccans or the Moorish subject, because, you know, depending on what's perspective or what angle or timeline of history you're talking about, you can see that you're not the Moroccan subject or the Moorish subject, and you are the Moorish subject, depending on what angle you're coming from. You know, but it's time to now start getting more comfortable with the highest tiers, which is just national. We're gonna start from the highest tiers first, the spirit first, right? Coming down into the understanding as far as we need our government first, then we can get these organizations going, not the other way around. As far as we can do these organizations, then we can all come together as organization. You know, it starts from the top up or top down. So this is Allah's will, if you will. We just gotta align with that. It's coming from the top down, right? So that's pretty much on that.
Beautiful.
Clarify that further. Let me clarify that further. There's two different aspects. You got your Moorish subject, Moroccan subjects, and then you also have the subjects of Morocco. Those are two different things. You're a subject of Morocco, meaning that you're subject to the crown of Morocco, which means you're under the jurisdiction of your people, your government, your monarchy, because at the time it was a monarchy. Moorish subject means that you've been subjugated and you're under the jurisdiction of another nation. So when we fell, we became Moorish subjects, Moorish subjects under the jurisdiction of the United States, coming from being subjects of Morocco's. So when we were in our proper status, we were subjects of Morocco, meaning that Morocco was running things and we was under that jurisdiction. When we fell, we became Moorish subjects, which means that we've been subjugated and under the jurisdiction of the United States. Let me give you something else further. I'm sharing the screen. I hope you can see this. I got a message on here that I got too many apps open. That's the reason why I've been having these problems today with this computer. I figured it was something else other than the computer messing up. I just got too many daggone tabs open, most of these tabs are all treaties. So what I'm about to read to you real quick is Hoffman Phillip speaking. I believe he was speaking. I forget the name of the guy, but it's Secretary of State, and I think Hoffman Phillip is a congressman or vice versa. But the point is the language or the context. And he said, "Sir, there are strictly speaking. Now listen to this. There are strictly speaking no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moorish subjects in Morocco." Off top. We don't deal with citizenship. So we've never been citizens. There are, strictly speaking, no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moorish subjects in Morocco. The fundamental laws of, and when he says Moorish subjects in Morocco, that means that we are the subjects that's been naturalized, basically. You know, we're under the jurisdiction of the United States in Morocco. The fundamental laws of this non-Christian country are based entirely upon the Islamic code, no part of which treats of the subject of citizenship. That only comes from the United States. We only are subjects, or no, either you're a subject or you're not. There are, however, numerous treaties and conventions between the various Christian countries and the Moorish Empire, by means of which citizenship in this country is defined. But as I understand from the above acknowledged instructions, that it is not the desire of the department to call for a report upon such lines, I will therefore confine these remarks to general conditions existing, which may possibly be of some use in connection with the information desired. 1. Citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure Moorish subjects. This is what they said. 2 and 3, Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized in or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. It just told you how we lost our nationality, by becoming naturalized and protected by the United States.
Teach was it.
And then, and then after that, he goes on to say, it was established by the Convention of Madrid, concluded July 3rd, 1880, as follows. And then he quoted Article 15 of the Treaty of Madrid that I just quoted to you all, that says, any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country and who shall return to Morocco shall, after having remained in a length of time equal to that which shall have been regularly necessary for him to obtain such naturalization, choose between the entire submission of the laws of the empire and the obligation to quit Morocco, unless it shall be proved that his naturalization in a foreign country was obtained with the consent of the government of Morocco. So he's affirming Article 15, the white boy in Congress. He's affirming it, and he said that, he said that any persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure Moorish subjects. So what that means is, if you go into the courtroom and you claim in Tyrone Bey, but on your birth certificate you're Tyrone Smith, the courts can show and prove your existence as Tyrone Smith. But you as Tyrone Bey, unless you have chosen a submission to the laws of the empire and consented to a Moorish state who issued you your documents, unless you did that, you cannot prove that you are a Moor. You can't prove your Bey, because your Bey is not on the register of any other Moorish government. So therefore you are stateless, a denizen. You're lost at sea, because there's no government that's recognizing your Bey. This is what happened to the brother Burton Bey in the case United States versus Rodney Burton. He was trying to stand his square as Burton Bey, and he lost the case because he wasn't able to prove his allegiance to a foreign state. According to what the white boy said just right here, I shouldn't call him that. According to what the Albayan said right here, when he said that persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure Moorish subjects. So then he goes on, after he finished going over Article 15, he said, the above ruling has never yet been acted upon, and should this at any time be contemplated seriously, a large number of naturalized people, Americans, and others residing in Morocco would be affected thereby. 4 and 5. Residence in foreign parts does not affect the nationality of Moorish subjects, and the Moorish government has no means of protecting its subjects permanently residing in other countries. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm giving you the reference points. So if you do not have a Moorish, if you're not part of a Moorish government that has issued you your nationality paperwork, your state ID, your certificate of live birth, your allodial certificate of live birth, then guess what? You're a Moorish subject. And they can do whatever the hell they want with you, as they've been doing. I don't know what else to tell y'all. It's in the treaties, and it's being affirmed by the same colonizers in their statutes and codes. Their legislation, I should say.
Islam. Beautiful.
And so this is where AMPAG, New Mecca, New Mecca and AMPAG, as well as any other Moorish state government coming online, this is where we make a difference for our people, because now our people have an option to choose between the submission of the laws of the empire, either by consenting or starting their own governments. So if you're in Georgia, you don't have to start a government. In fact, it's too late now because AMPAG has already took over the territory. All you can do is join forces. But you in Indiana, you can get it done. Y'all need one in Indiana. Coleman Ale, he got his flag, he got his seal, he's got the Constitution, he's got a couple of people. He only got but a few boxes left to check. He'll be ready to roll in Texas. So now Texas will have the people of the Moorish subjects of Texas will have an option to choose between the submission by joining by taking their allegiance to that Moorish state. This is the game. And this is what they've been keeping us away from, establishing our state governments.
I love it.
Establishing our state governments so that we may have an option to choose between the submission of the laws of the empire. Without that, we don't have nothing. Becoming a member of the temple is not choosing between the laws of the submission. It's not choosing between the submission of the laws of the empire. Becoming a part of any organization, Great Seal, whatever, it's not choosing between the laws of the empire. The only process in which you choose between the submission of the laws of the empire is through establishing a state government or taking your allegiance to a Moorish state government if it's already in existence. And if it's not in existence, good brothers and sisters, we have to establish it. And anyone who's interested in establishing their state governments in whatever territory, reach out. AMPAG is here to help. New Mecca is here to help. And of course, AMPAG is here to help. So I would suggest begin studying the AMPAG, going through the AMPAG study sessions. It would give you the keys and the reference points to start checking your boxes and establishing your state governments. I have to give high honors and flowers to the good brother, J. Jermaine Bey, the Qazi, Chief Judge of Consular Court for AMPAG, for what he has done for our people by providing 68 free study sessions after he checked the boxes. So he's coming to you with experience and he's teaching you based on experience. There's others out here that ain't checked not one box, but they're charging you $300 per session. Ain't checked not one box. I'm not gonna say any names, but he know who he is, and y'all know who it is. Ain't checked not one box, but you're charging $300 per session and don't know what the hell you're talking about. He know who he is, Islam. And you know who he is too, Akil.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know who he is, but I'll find out later.
You'll find out later.
Yeah, you'll definitely find out. So
not one box, and you want to charge people $300 per session. Listen, y'all, anybody who's paying $300 a session to learn nothing, I suggest you go spend whatever amount of hours that you have available to your time. That's what you're going to spend, is your time, and studying 68 free study sessions that are about an hour and a half a piece. And this government has done it. They check the boxes. They can tell you which way to go. Me and us in AMPAG, we can assist you in how to establish at least your first box, which is the sovereignty and independent principles. We've done it. We can show you how to do it. We can show you what's the address to what address is it that you got to send your promulgated and deposit your promulgated and your ratified constitution. I'm sorry. We show you where to send your ratified constitution in your Circle 7 of fact, state of fact documents, where to send it to. What documents that you need to accede or accept or reserve specific treaties, because you have to do that as well. That's part of the second principle, which is integrity of domain, dealing with your internal laws. And you cannot invoke or speak on treaty provisions if your name is not on the contract as a contracting party. And the way to do that is by what's called acceding to the treaties, signing on to the treaties. You want to play basketball? You got to sign on to the team. You want to be in the chess club? You got to sign on to the team. You want to have full powers to deal with the colonizers? You got to sign on to the treaties. Go ahead, good brother.
Islam. And we gonna, this is gonna be, a lot of this information is definitely gonna be repetitive. I can tell you, at least on my end, when I, go make different videos, on different topics on international law. So, this letter rogatory, or whatever, the exact steps of creating a state, this is gonna be, a lot of this is gonna be repetitive. So y'all will know who is who at the end of the day. But yeah, this is a definitely it's been a good build. You know what I mean? And again, I just want to put it out there. We're going to make another video that's going to be more so based on, of course, international law first and foremost. That's always going to be the primary foundation.
All I'm about.
Right. But the next, sometime soon, we'll be, like I said, be delving into political science, the metaphysics of law, so we can be a little bit more fluid from some misconceptions that we are comfortable with, and ease into the higher tiers of understanding outside of the international law documents itself, that kind of give us one or two sentences on something, and then we can kind of use some metaphysical books or political science books to help us exercise our water, if you will, be more fluid in our understanding, adjust our energy and our psychological processes, right? So we're not stuck behind certain mental walls. So, and just to give you guys a cliffhanger, some of the things that'll be in that video or series of videos will be the difference between nationality and statehood. Because when we say proclaim nationality, what a lot of people actually mean or think they mean is starting a government, in which nationality and state go hand in hand, but it's like the mind and the breath. They're not exactly the same. They can be deciphered. And the weight in the political arena, the international arena, can be seen and differentiated. So we're gonna make some videos into us adjusting our mentalities. Even myself, we all in this to basically, is it proclaim nationality, is it proclaim statehood? Which is, it's important to do both, right? Because nationality deals with customs and language and stuff like that.
Your state will come before your nationality, because if you
right,
if you don't have a state, then you don't have a nationality.
Exactly. So we definitely gonna be tackling into that. just so you guys can look forward to that.
Islam, I'm sure everyone does. And you know, the spiritual, well, it is a divine and national movement. When you look at the compass and square from the Masonic compass and square, that's what you're looking at. The circle, which is the compass, represents the divine side, and the square represents the manifestation of the laws that come from the divine side. You understand? And they go hand in hand. That's why the G can stand for geometry, but it also can stand for government. You see what I'm saying? The ultimate, these are the teachings. It's through Masonry that we taught these people how to be civilized and operate governments. But we aren't Freemasons. We are Masons. My sons, the sons of the mothers, right? And we're born on a square, standing upright with our 33 vertebrae upright. Whereas there was a point where they were crawling, so we had to raise them up. We had to raise them up to the 33rd degree, which is the 33rd vertebrae. That's why they only have 33 degrees. Whereas Masons, the Moors, we operate on 720 degrees. You look at my fast, 360 degrees above, 360 degrees below, 720. 720 degrees, 720 Moors, baby. And it's always been that way. We just lost our way. And it's time to get it back. And we get it back through international law and statehood. We have to establish our Moorish state governments in each of these territories that they call state of whatever, state of Georgia, state of Maryland, state of New York, state of California. We are supposed to take over these territories on the uti possidetis juris international law principles. And in doing so, we can then now form a central government to reemerge or bring back the existence of Morocco, to take back the seats, to sit back into the seats, because it's not dead, it's just stagnant, it's just in a coma because the governing bodies are not in office. They're too busy writing writs and affidavits and downloading documents off websites and MTD cards and all this BS that's totally and absolutely incompetent and hasn't gotten us nowhere for the past several decades, except for traffic case dismissals. This is where we're at with it. We're just dismissing cases, shutting down courts and dismissing cases and not paying child support and not paying tickets. My brother, decolonization is decolonization, and decolonization deals with the restoration of the estate, and that's not happening through no damn traffic court. We're not even supposed to be in the courts. Isn't that what the prophet said? All right, then. How do you stay out of the courts? Consular court, ministerial decrees, judgments, orders, and opinions that comes from the Qazi or the chief judge of consular court. To force decolonization, we don't care about no damn tickets. What we care about is the restoration of the entire empire, man. Running around here charging people $5,000 and $10,000 to keep them from having to pay child support, and so they can get away with foreclosures and all this BS. While at the same time, you're paying taxes and you're an ipsa jure Moorish subject because you haven't consented to a Moorish state government that has the three branches of government, your legislative branch, your executive branch, and your judicial branch, in which the judicial branch itself establishes your consular court. You don't have, nobody else around the world has a standalone court without the backing of a state. Where they do that at? I tell you where they do that at. In Morocco with the incompetent Moors who think they're doing something, but they ain't doing nothing. All they're doing is enforcing the United States Constitution instead of getting up off their asses and writing, establishing, enacting their own constitution to then force the treaties upon the colonizers, man. Don't get me started. This stuff right here is very, I get real passionate with this because I done got jammed up dealing with this nonsense. And what was I called? Oh, you're incompetent. You're incompetent. You don't know how to stand your square. Nah, the whole process is incompetent.
Facts.
It's the process that's incompetent. I done got sucked into R.V. Bey Publications down. Now, don't get me wrong. R.V. Bey Publications has its place. It's an awesome online resource for erudition and information. But in no way, shape, form, or fashion is it a place for you to reclaim your nationality. Your nationality comes through the state, not a website, not a temple, not a church, not an organization. A state government, just like all the other nationals on planet Earth. What makes us any different?
Islam. Yeah, that was well said, Mo.
It's I, self, law, am master. We're supposed to be about laws. So why are we dealing with just simply United States laws? That's their laws. Establish your own laws through your treaties that your ancestors wrote on your behalf to give you the authority. So Act of Algeciras is the main one. That's the most powerful one. And it supersedes any and all other treaties in which there may be a dispute or some sort of contradiction in the articles. Automatically, the Treaty of Madrid, the Act of Algeciras, takes the dominant position in whatever dispute. That's why in the ICJ, they only quoted 2 or 3 articles from the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. That was Articles 20, 21, and 22. The Treaty of Madrid, they only quoted like Article 7, Article 8, and Article 15. The Act of Algeciras, oh man, it was like 20 articles that they quoted. That's the main one they used to adjudicate the case. So anybody out there, any competent Moor out there who's interested in establishing your own state governments within your territory with your people, give us a call. I will put the my email address in the chat. You can also contact AMPAG, but they're probably gonna, well, they have the mechanisms to deal with it. But the brother who assisted us in establishing our government, he has retired, so he's no longer in that post as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So I'm not sure. They have an acting Minister of Foreign Affairs, and it's a female. I believe her name is Nova Ale. I'm not sure her level of erudition. I've never really spoken with her. But you have her assistance, but then you can also contact us. You can also contact New Mecca. We're all in this together, man. And I don't want anyone to feel as though I'm going off on the Moors. I love the Moors. I love my people. And what I'm talking is just strictly tough love. Because where there is incompetency and things aren't doing the right way, I will have something to say about it, whether you like it or not. Here's what I would say to that person. Go back and look at the reference points and prove me wrong. Because nothing that I'm saying, nothing that J. Jermaine Bey is saying is coming from our own ideologies or some teaching that we created that we just put together in some basement. It comes from the treaties. It comes from international law. So found out what international law or treaty, whatever reference points you can find to combat what it is that we're saying, and then we can have a discussion. Until then, just study. Just follow the points, the reference points, and study those reference points. Don't argue, because your argument will be futile. Your argument will be capricious and frivolous, because you don't have an argument. There's nothing for you to stand on unless it's international law and treaties. If you got that you can show and prove something different, then by all means, I'm all ears. But don't come at me with no USC codes and laws from the United States. That we can't do, because that's apples to oranges. You wouldn't be arguing with me. You wouldn't be arguing with J. Jermaine Bey. You would be arguing the treaties. You would be arguing international law. Just wanted to make that point clear as well. Islam, I yield the floor. I see it's 3 o'clock. I guess we're going to come to a closing here.
Yeah, that's a good deal. So this is going to be posted on what What link or somebody's page?
It will be. We'll discuss that upon closing of the call.
Okay, good deal. All right. Well, it was definitely good building with you, Moors of the AMPAG, and other Moors outside of AMPAG, if there are any on this call. And from the deepest place of my heart, I do wish everybody peace and love. And I hope to see everybody in the next upcoming meetings.
Yeah, we'll schedule it. We'll try to make it every Saturday, right? Around the same time.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good deal.
Well, we'll talk about that after we hang up. Because so that we can discuss about the upload and what we're gonna do with the recording. And
okay,
I
that sounds good.
The recording is probably going to be in 2 parts because I ran into some problems on the computer. I found out what it is now. I just had too many tabs open. I figured that was potentially a problem. I'm not a computer dude, so I don't be knowing anything. But
I understand that.
Islam, good brother, I appreciate your time and your interview. You interviewing us. I think is right on time, and I feel that we should do this on a consistent basis to help get out the word of international law, help J Bay. That's who we roll with. And we want the world, or as many people that got the eyes to see and the ears to hear, because not all of us do. A lot of Moors are gonna reject this information specifically because we're utilizing reference points to show and prove that we're not Moorish Americans, and Moors just want to be Americans so bad. They want to be Aboriginal Indigenous Americans. So those who want to be Aboriginal and Indigenous Americans, you can remain in that jurisdiction. Those who want to choose between the submission of the laws of the empire and reclaim their Moroccan nationality, this is where you want to be. And we're more than willing and happy to assist in that regard. So I want to give you thanks for bringing me on your platform, good brother. And and I want to thank everyone that showed up, and I also want to thank the viewers. And anyone who might be in their feelings based on some of the things that I said. The truth hurts. At least there's an option, and there's a solution to the problem, and I've already highlighted the solution to the problem. So let's focus on the solution and get out of your feelings. Just like Tashariq Bey would say, get over it and start establishing your state governments. I yield the floor.
Islam. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Peace to you.
Peace and love, you guys. We'll talk soon.
Peace and love, Islam.
Islam.